Hey Mookie, you wanna go down to Sal's and get a slice? Do the Right Thing, released in 1989 and is directed by Spike Lee, who has also directed such films like Jungle Fever, Malcolm X, He Got Game, Bamboozled, Inside Man, and Black Klansman. And this movie is starring Danny Aiello, Ossie Davis, Ruby Dee, Richard Edson, Giancarlo Esposito, Bill Nunn, John Savage, John Turturro, and Spike Lee himself as Mookie. And the reason why we're talking about Do the Right Thing today is because it was a PayPal recommendation and donation from one of the OGs, one of my longest supporters and contributors on this channel, Mr. and Mrs. Rusted Beetle. Thank you so much. This, of course, goes along with all your past recommendations where you've selected a film that has just this huge and fantastic ensemble. And I love ensemble pieces. I love films that it's not just focused on one person, it's focused on a whole cast of people. It's very theatrical for me, and I like theater. I like it a lot. And actually, this movie, has this been made into a theatrical production? I don't think it has. And that's a total shame because it needs to be. It lends itself so much to theatrical qualities. It's one setting. There's a whole bunch of people. You have all of these spots in the film where there are monologues by people, zoom-ins on people, of people telling their story. This needs to be a stage production. This should be converted into a musical, I think. It needs to happen. Do the Right Thing tells the story of a one-block radius in Brooklyn, New York on one hot-ass day in summer. The inhabitants of this block go about their day as they usually do, while racial tensions build between the African Americans and the Italian Americans who are living or working on this city block. And that's really all you need to know. We're not following one in particular person. We're not following one person's progression and one person's story. It's really the story of this neighborhood, the story of this block. This block is the protagonist, and there's not really one set antagonist other than really just the heat. And you can examine that word heat in the literal sense, like the actual heat of the day, or in a metaphorical sense, the heat representing all of the racial tension between really every single person on this block. And that is the best thing about this movie, is that it's layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of hidden meanings, metaphors, representations of things that are happening in the world today, a mirror to society, and it showcases everyone in this community as the hero of their own story. You look at each person and everyone's dilemma and everyone's work ethic and everyone's social aspects, and I think every single person that watches this movie could relate to one in particular person. Everyone's just not always going to Mookie. Not everyone's just going all the way to Sal and getting behind his corner. No, everyone, I think, at one point gets into the corner of the other characters and see where they're coming from. And that is really the only way that you can combat the idea of racism, the actions of racism, passive-aggressive racism, is to open your eyes and to open your ears and listen and to get to know everyone and to see where other people are coming from, not just from your own privilege that you sit on, if you have privilege at all. No, I knew nothing about this movie coming into it. I had no idea what the story was, who was starring in this thing. I knew it was directed by Spike Lee because whenever the Oscars come around, everyone talks about big Oscar snubs, and this movie always comes up, especially when it comes to Best Picture and Best Director. Here's a movie that showcases, hey, we have a problem in this country of racial tension building between different ethnicities. Not just between black people and white people, but also between Latinos and Asian cultures. Everyone in this country is kind of just building hatred toward the other because the other person's skin is different, or where they come from is different where the other person comes from. But what's hilarious about that is that the nominations for this year in films, the Best Picture went to Driving Miss Daisy, where it talked about how, oh, well, black people and white people get along and everything is fine. When a movie like this comes out and it clearly shows that everything is not fine. I just love the Academy. They're so not with it at all. But boy, they like to think they are. Now, because I knew nothing about this, when the film starts, it kind of has that comedic sense about it, but really, again, we're not following a single person, and I've read enough theater, I have starred in enough theater to where I know in a story situation like this, where we're focusing on a community, a bunch of characters like this, something bad's going to happen. This is not going to end well. This is going to end in some type of tragedy. And of course, I'm not going to spoil it, but this movie does end in some type of tragedy. And how funny is it that the tragedy that happened back in 1989 in the 80s is still an issue that is going on today, especially with the rise of the movement Black Lives Matter, really getting going in 2020. It's interesting. It's almost been 40 years, and we're still dealing with the same things. How interesting. This movie is so well done, and I was so impressed with every single aspect, the way it's written and how it jumps from one person's story to the next, and how one moment you're hating this one character, and then the next scene, they do something that's so endearing and a smile comes on your face and you start loving them again. But then all of a sudden you start hating them because one little thing sets them off, and then they go back into that asshole character that they were in the other scene. The way this movie is shot is very encouraging and very interesting. There will be moments where characters meet up with each other, and then one of the characters goes into kind of their backstory, or just a story in general, and the camera will move slowly to where it's the point of view of the other character. They kind of step back, and then we're just focusing on the one guy telling his story, and then the camera moves back, the other actor comes in, and we continue on with the scene. It's very theatrical. This movie needs to be a theatrical show or a musical. It just has to be. Of course, I could do my research and look it up, but I am a lazy-ass movie reviewer, and I am not going to do that. I would say the only thing about this movie that took me out of this was actually Spike Lee's performance. I think he directed a hell of a movie here, and has a great eye for how to tell a story and how to tell a character's backstory, but him performing as the character of Mookie felt a lot like he was just reading his own lines that he wrote down. I wasn't getting a lot of connectivity between the actor, Spike Lee, and the words that were written down on the page. Now, the interpretation there could be, hey, that's Mookie's character. He's this person that kind of just strolls along through life with really no ambitions and really takes no charge of anything in his life, which is why when we get to the end and he does what he does, it's very out of character for him, but it's also a moment where you're like, yeah, I'm kind of proud of you. You took a stance on something. I don't know if I agree with it, but I kind of take a stance with you. But his performance is the only thing that I took a step back and I'm like, this is just not connecting with all the other actors and performers in this movie. But Do the Right Thing is one hell of a film. It was absolutely snubbed at the Oscars. This one definitely should have won Best Picture that year, as opposed to the happy-go-lucky Driving Miss Daisy, where everything racism-wise in this country is so fine and everything is great and peachy keen. Do the Right Thing is a must-watch film. It is fantastic. I'm going to give Do the Right Thing 4.5 out of 5 Blu-rays.
It's good. It's good. It's good.
So guys, if you've seen Do the Right Thing, what did you think about it? Or if you've never seen it before and you stumbled across because of this video, then comment below, let me know what you thought about it. And as always, if you like what you see here, if you like my take on movies, then hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit that bell. See you the next time I'm releasing the next movie review. So guys, I will see you next time on the channel, but in the meantime, be well, be good to each other, and go watch a movie. Take care, guys.